Have you started to ask yourself, boy, how come every one of these people all around the world, well, really all around the United States, sadly, although I think there was one in New Zealand, right? How come they all do basically the same thing? They write on their tools, their implements. They use a lot of the same symbology, symbols. They run in a lot of the same circles. Well, if you're also a pattern noticer, you're noticing that a lot of them have been trans recently. And I would argue that probably more of them throughout history would have identified as such if it was the new hot medical diagnosis or the new hot clout, I have something interesting about myself diagnosis. But what if I told you a lot of these people indirectly or directly draw inspiration from one particular cult? One particular group that started in, I believe, Europe or in the UK in the 70s. And a lot of the symbology that is used by these people comes from a organization, a cult called the Order of Nine Angles. Now, the mainstream media tries to call this right wing. I've done a decent amount of deep dive into this, and I'm looking at doing an actual deep dive series into these type of cults where they're 30 minutes long and a deep dive. Leave a like on the video if you'd like that. Because I didn't even know about O9A. You might know them as O9A. Now, first and foremost, everything that I've seen to have gathered seems that there is a direct connection between people who identify as trans, people who are deeply unhappy, people who have deep-rooted mental problems, and those same people finding O9A, or perhaps O9A finding them, depending on how deep of a dive you want to do. And there's also an element of copycatness, right? The next guy who does this in 2 weeks will probably have similar symbology on their weapons and their implements. And it's some percentage worshiping others who have done these type of things, which the guy yesterday did. He had written previous lunatics' names on different magazines and weapons and things like that. The girl in Wisconsin also using very similar symbology and symbology. A lot of it can be drawn back to the Order of Nine Angles. Now, there's a thread here by Psychosomatica. Again, I agree with a lot of the work, but I disagree with the fact that it is right-wing. It is not right-wing. That I could find no right-wing ideology other than if you're a leftoid, you think because they use, the bad guys from WW2 imagery and stuff like that, that if you think everybody who's right-wing is also one of those people, then you could say that. I found no convincing evidence that this is right-wing. This is a demonic Satanist cult that specifically aims to desensitize people to horrific acts and have a specific path that people take to radicalize them. Almost every one of, the Colorado theater guy, all these recent people who have done this have used symbology from this group. The O9A, we're going to short it to O9A now. It's the Order of Nine Angles, /716, affiliated lunatics ranging from, I'm not going to name any of these people, but there's 3 or 4 of them. They all hold a common set of beliefs and symbology that cannot help but smear everywhere. White text on their weapons, OK signs, brevet references. Here are the cross association, associated with one of the guys. You see the cross here. You see the OK hand sign. Crimeo, of course, like some of these others, 2 or 3 other people, another Discord to destroy, ruin, who claim to have been MK Ultra victim. All this has been covered in great detail elsewhere, but again, you see the same symbology here on their hat, their shirt, right? Notably, there's another layer of interesting connections. Yesterday's loser had a forum account in which they announced that they were going to do it 3 weeks in advance. Notably, using O9A symbology in their bio. From there, I was able to find their Twitter account. right? So you have this symbol here in their bio, which is the symbol of O9A here. The Twitter account is quite interesting. You don't see many, quote, leftist lunatics talking about soy cucks and claiming vat-grown meat is a Zog psyop, nor do you see them following and being followed by men who love children. Well, I don't know. The entirety of Blue Sky seems to be full of that. Again, ignore this person's desperate attempts to make this a left or right-wing thing and understand that this is a psycho thing, right? You also have other imagery that's tied to this individual. Now, there's also threads that go further deep. Now, again, I'm not saying that this group made them do that. I'm saying that people find this group who are damaged. People who are damaged hate society. They start looking for other people who do the same. You see this individual, the Annunciation Catholic School loser, thought they were passing away from lung cancer and seemingly intended to end it all in the sanctuary. Initial assessment is that this is another O9A 764 Terrorgram Discord deep event. You hear Pekka, the names written on the magazine. James Holmes. Pekka says, he was a Hitlerite Finnish school loser. James Holmes was a schizotypical, the Aurora theater lunatic. Adam Lanza did Sandy Hook. All these people, this is the names that he wrote on his magazine, right? In which also this person says, in which Robin Westman, so you could tell these are left-wing accounts because they're using her, that the ammo was sponsored by BlackRock, ExxonMobil, PBR, and a right-wing congressional candidate. The symbol of Westman's magazine, not clip, is the cross of endlessness, which is perhaps the most affiliated with the Highland Park parade psycho, and a culted Discord, weirdo who alleged that he was a product of MK Ultra and retroactively claimed his attack was in fact a false flag, still having the symbology here, all this type of stuff. These are people desperate to say, well, it's not trans, they're in this cult. But the truth is they're both. They are trans, they are deeply disturbed, and they have also seeked out this cult. You have a lot of this, Anders Breivik reference. They're edgelords, things like that. They find the Twitter account. Here's what appears to be as close to an O9A 764 smoking gun as we've seen. The drilled sergeant, Greg Tulpa. This is Daffy's Construction. It's an allusion to a terrible video. This type of stuff. This basically, a lot of these people gather in discords, hype each other up. The Twin Cities also appears to be a bit of an O9A hotspot. Highly interesting in context that Vance Bolter, as shown here, by this knife incident perpetrated against a homeless woman by a 20-year-old member of the cell SRM named Corrupt just weeks ago. So who is, in accordance with yet another O9A deep event trope, it appears that Robert Westman was active on Russian social media under on app VK under the handle of Bob Vistaman, apparently highly evocative of Natalie Rupnow, the Femcell Wisconsin person who was also linked to O9A, who IRC communicated on X and elsewhere with an account from Russia or eEuro, who was also mutuals with the Antioch Black Hebrew Israelite Groiper lunatic. Again, these people I don't think are necessarily groomed by O9A, but they find it and they've already kind of decided this is what I'm going to do, right? Obviously, Hassan Piker and the leftoids are blame Ben Shapiro. But if we look, Jimmy Dore says this is a psyop. And I think that a lot of this stuff, this guy had a problem with Jews, and why did he drive past 6 synagogues to get to a Catholic church? which is exactly what he did do. You know, if you look at this particular group, there's a couple of videos out there who talk about it. This is a video by Anthony Arcane, and here he talks about O9A and like their pathway.
Hostia contains several rituals, invocations, path working.
This is Hostia, the secret teachings of O9A, a book or a pamphlet or whatever.
Ceremonies aligned to the septenary system, a unique cosmology based on 7 stages of transformation. Here, traditional satanic archetypes like Lucifer, Baphomet, and Adosoth are not symbolic evils, but forces of cosmic evolution. The rituals are designed to accelerate aeonic change, not just within the self, but within the fabric of reality. The ONA, the magical current, is not about control. It is about becoming a living nexion between dimensions. The teachings in
I can tell this kid is trying to sound spooky or whatever, but what he's saying is factually correct.
Hostia are extreme, and they have drawn heavy criticism and fear. Why? Because the ONA encourages real-world transgression as part of spiritual evolution. This includes breaking taboos, embracing chaos, and at its darkest, committing acts of violence or manipulation in the name of spiritual transformation. Critics.
Now I know Wikipedia, but it's a satanic left-hand path and apparently a terror network that originated in the UK, but has since branched out in other parts of the world. Claiming to have been established in the 1960s, it rose to public recognition in the 80s, attracting attention for its neo-bad guy from WW2 and activism. Describing its approach as traditional Satanism, it also exhibits Hermetic and modern pagan elements in its beliefs. According to the order's own claims, it was established in the Welsh marches of Western England during the late 60s by a woman previously involved in a secretive pre-Christian tradition. This account adds that in 1973, a man named Anton Long was initiated into the group, subsequently becoming its Grand Master. Several academics who have studied ONA that Anton Long is probably a pseudonym for a British neo-bad guy, David Mayat, although Mayat has denied that. Again, there is like that type of imagery, but this is at its core a satanic cult, right? They have all sorts of pathways, things that you do. The group also, like again, Vice, a new satanic group is recruiting people, right? Members of this group appear to be very young, between the ages of 12 and 18. Their propaganda aesthetic is deliberately crude and confrontational, full of satanic and O9A imagery, as well as heavily edited, gross pictures that in that respect, it takes cues from the Atomwaffen division, a bunch of O9A bad guys who have been linked to many acts, and in fact designated as a terror group in the UK. Designed not only to shock, but to establish in-group identity, ideological element. This is a group that essentially, the core functionality of the group is to desensitize users through exposure to disgusting videos, stuff like beheading videos, narco executions, violent ideology, while normalizing discussions that encourage all sorts of terrible stuff. Crimes against kids and women, and materials shared in the Signal group, which Vice infiltrated, include handbooks like The Militant Accelerationist, which openly call for attacks while lauding far-right extremists like Benton Tarrant as saints, linked to download a horrible themed video game called No Mercy, images of animal sacrifices tied to O9A rituals, memes glorifying, terrible acts. Members celebrate, again, it's because it's on Vice, they're going to say it's right-wing, but this is not a right-wing group. This is a group that has been around for a long time. Here's a short little clip from Toon Explainer from 8 months ago talking about just this particular group.
The Order of Nine Angles. This is one of the most secretive and controversial satanic organizations in the world. The O9A focuses on extreme esotericism, transgression, and personal transformation through what they call the sinister path. But their philosophy doesn't just challenge traditional norms, it openly advocates for acts of violence and destruction, sparking widespread condemnation. Originating in the United Kingdom in the late 1960s or early 1970s, the O9A blends elements of Satanism, paganism, and occult traditions into its unique worldview. For them, Satan isn't a deity but a force of chaos and rebellion, a symbol of breaking free from the cosmic order. At the heart of their beliefs is the Sevenfold Way, a long-term path of self-development. This includes physical challenges, studying ancient esoteric texts, and engaging in rituals that test the boundaries of morality and endurance. But what makes the O9A particularly infamous is their embrace of violent and morally transgressive acts as part of spiritual growth. Members are encouraged to carry out actions that intentionally harm others or destabilize society, under the justification of advancing their own transformation. Allegedly, the O9A instructs members to carry out human sacrifices under specific circumstances. Victims, referred to as oppers, are chosen based on the belief that they are unworthy or detrimental to society.
And you can watch his whole video, obviously. But, you know, it's a chicken or the egg scenario. These are people who are deeply, deeply, deeply damaged. And do they then find O9A after that? Are they, you know, obsessed with it? Are they, you know, because we see, you know, the Wisconsin femcel chick, she worshipped these people. So you look at these people, you look at what they're into, you end up into this O9A stuff, and, you know, maybe they become unwilling participants. One thing's for sure, these people are deeply, deeply damaged. But O9A is something that seems to have its tentacles into a lot of these modern incidences. Now, does it have something, you know, is it because each new person is copying the other one, or is each person getting involved in it? I don't know, but it's probably worth paying attention to the symbology and things like that that are going on out there. I hope that this was somewhat informing to you, and you know, hey, feel free to dig in. There's a lot of people that are far smarter than I am on it, and maybe I'll get them on the show for a deeper dive. Hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.